Hi everyone, it's Jonathan with Star Talking Alabama. Today we will be discussing advocacy with Daniel Deon Scott Lewis, who is a model and fashion show producer here in Birmingham. So Daniel, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 21. I am a model, and I am the owner of DDSL Productions, which is a multifaceted fashion production company here in Birmingham.
Awesome. So today we will be discussing advocacy. So tell me what sparked your interest in being an advocate for the LGBT community.
Well, being HIV positive, I looked at advertisements for HIV medication, and I noticed that there aren't many front runners, people admitting to the fact of being HIV positive, because with medication advertisements for like Jimvoy and Striblet, you'll see in the corner that this person or this model is not really HIV positive. You have a disconnect and you start to look for who are the faces, who are the people to get up and to look forward and say, I'm HIV positive, this is my life, this is how I live, and it's nothing to be afraid of.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being open about your status. Tell me a little bit about what it was like finding out you were positive and getting to the point where you wanted to advocate and speak more upon that.
When someone, especially as young as I am, being only 21, when you find out that you're HIV positive, to be honest, it's like the world crumbles in a sense. You start to think on different levels of, will I be able to have kids? Be blunt, my sex life is over. No one's gonna wanna touch me with a 10-foot pole. How are people gonna look at you? There's so many negative stigmatisms associated with being HIV positive. And my first interaction was with MAO and the Medical AIDS Outreach, now the Medical Advocacy Outreach of Alabama. Dr. Barbara Owens sat me down. She was my HIV doctor and told me, your life is not over. You will continue to live. You will be happy. She was very direct and forward and reassuring and letting me know that there's life beyond HIV.
So would you consider her being an advocate for you?
By all means. She may not be out there, and on the front lines, marching. Well, she has done it once or twice, but she has more of a direct involvement because she is face to face with people who are HIV every day. And she reassures them and let them know, like, this is a life that you can live and it doesn't end here. She actually was the first person that came to me and was like, you're young, you're attractive, you should be a face, be that front runner. And the first thing that pops in my mind, why would I want to be the face of HIV? But to be real, it's a negative stigmatism, and the way I see it is we need to reconstruct the negative thoughts about it, because it's not as bad as a lot of people think, and it's because they don't know.
So what challenges have you faced being an advocate for the LGBT community?
As we know, LGBT community, we get to choose our family. And in that same sense, with our community, we have a lot of negative stigmatisms within ourselves. Being HIV positive, you'll see with our local apps like Grindr and Jacked, you don't see people admitting to being HIV positive. And then once you do, they get ostracized. They are that person who's just out there and spreading disease, and because of ignorance, people don't know. One thing that I've noticed was when I was testing the waters out as far as Grindr, Jacked, I would put that I am HIV positive, and no messages, no comments, no likes, pokes, or anything like that. But if there's no HIV positive for me shirtless, people will send me pictures and wanting to hook up and things of that nature. And I feel that being so easy, but yet if someone is open, they are ostracized. It's very negative. It's something that we have to rebrand and rethink about.
Yeah. So I would kind of categorize ourselves as the millennials. And with us being younger individuals under 30, 25, it's commendable for us to kind of being the voice for the community. So what advice would you give to a younger person, let's say who's 17 and is interested in advocating for our community?
You can't be afraid. You have to have a tough skin, and you have to understand that people are going to appreciate you for being open and honest about your status, but you have to rebrand that thoughts because it's a bigger picture than just being open and honest. You have to look at it. If people are out and they are open about their status, then they don't feel so ashamed to lie about it, or they don't have to hide it. Once they are open, it leads to discussion and getting people more knowledgeable about HIV and the negative stigmatisms and the misconceptions that, just because I touch you doesn't mean you're going to catch it.
Absolutely.
And once that is retrained in our thought process, people will be more comfortable to discuss it, and the chances of spreading the disease is less likely because it's being talked about. I mean, start talking Alabama, that's the point, right?
Yeah. So Daniel, what challenges have you faced with dating and being HIV positive? Have there been incidents where someone approaches you and they figure out your status, or you're open about your status, and then they're apprehensive about it?
With our dating apps and our new age being millennials, we seem to go back into social media and it's easier for us to disconnect. So with dating, it's just, I'm gonna send this person a message, see if they're interested. And with me, if I respond on a message on Jack'd or Grindr, the first thing that I say is, I'm HIV positive, I just wanna let you know before we move any further. And 9 times out of 10, it's an automatic block because people aren't knowledgeable and they don't really understand, and I consider that just a loss for them. If you're ignorant enough to where you don't have to ask questions and you just disconnect, that is more likely for a person to contract disease due to the fact they just don't know and they don't ask questions. But once that is open for discussion, if someone doesn't just end all be all, it's letting them know, I am undetectable, I am on medication. With that and using protection, condoms, of course, along with if the relationship goes further than becoming on PrEP, the chances of spreading the disease is slim to none. And it's not just, we kiss and make out and next thing you know, you are HIV positive. That is not how it works. The misconceptions and the misunderstandings about HIV is what causes people to not want to talk about it. And changing that mindset and mentality is what can cause people to be open and change the mindset.
So Daniel, another question I have for you is, how do you incorporate advocacy into your personal business, and how do you help others incorporate advocacy in their life and business as well?
Something that DDSL Productions does is that we make it a goal for us to involve everyone who is working for us. When we do a fashion show, whether it's models, hairstylists, designers, everyone knows that we're doing this for a reason. 10% of profits produced by our business, whether it's from shows, me making dresses, producing photo shoots, we donate this back to a medical AIDS outreach or advocacy outreach or some type of involvement. So they know from the beginning, this is why we do this and this is what we're doing. We also speak to them and let them know, it's not the negative stigmatisms that you think are associated. We try to sit down at least one practice or one gathering and let each individual know the backings and the reasons behind it. When it comes to us doing other shows and being a fashion show producer, I help other people produce shows and things of that nature, and when I associate with them, I let them know DDSL Productions does advocate and we give back to the community. So when you are working with us, you are giving back as well. And one of the challenges that I faced is when I opened my company, I spoke to my mother about it, letting her know that this is something that I was interested in doing, and being an advocate and being that person that someone can look to. And her biggest fear was the misconception. Being in Alabama and being in the Southern Belt, she was afraid that it would cause a negative blight into my business because people don't know. They don't want to know. They're ignorant and they are comfortable in their ignorance. And she was afraid that it was going to cause my business to suffer. It was going to make my image and as being a public figure go down. And I expressed to her that if that happens, if I can change one life and be an advocate for one person, then it's worth it, because I needed that person. And if it wasn't for Dr. Barbara Owens, I probably wouldn't be here today, because if you don't have that person to look for, if you don't have that person to go to and ask questions or just to have a discussion with, you can feel alone in this world. And my goal is to be that face for someone.
So Daniel, you mentioned earlier that you're an advocate for the LGBT community. What are your future goals, personally and business-wise?
Something that I've realized as far as being an advocate is that it's hard to talk about, which is why we do, to start talking Alabama, it makes it a little bit easier. But you can't just walk up to someone and just say, hey, you want to talk about AIDS? So with that being said, I've figured out a way to tie it in with my productions and with my business. So every show that I plan on doing for the next 4 years, as they grow larger and larger, we plan on incorporating advocacy and giving even a 10 to 15 minute talk in intermission to our crowds, which range from 500 to 1,400 people at one time. So that'll be a way of spreading advocacy and doing it in a manner to where it's not so direct to where it's uncomfortable, but you encompass it with entertainment. They can feel like, oh, hey, I'm getting a show, but I'm also learning something in the process.
Right. Daniel, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And for the viewers that are watching, make sure you visit your local HIV clinic so you can get tested for HIV and know your status. And remember, start talking